I'm delighted that things worked out so well with the marathon this year. After months of cooperation with the town and race officials, it seems to have come together. And when I was out early this morning with town officials, and once we knew it was working, I could stand there at the end of the drive and just enjoy it. And it was amazing to see people coming back west, heading to Shell Park for the finish, as people were still coming east. And the people coming east often were like how Allison described herself. How I would describe myself. A tortoise marathon. But they didn't give up. And there was a woman out here at the end of our drive, an official with the marathon, saying, "You can do it. You can do it," and giving a pat on their shoulder as they came by. What inspiration. Well, today is one of those jam-packed Sundays we often get in the church in the spring and the fall. There's only so many Sundays in the so-called hip seasons of the year. And those seasons often overflow as we try to put so much into so few Sundays. Between the summer bliss of warmth and the chilly winter weather. You see, soon it will be cold. It will be. We've had the warmest summer, we've had the warmest fall, spring, warmest September. Soon there will be cold rains and slush and snow. And it's for that reason our Great Outreach Committee had their annual Sock Sunday. In the past years, maybe you have thrown socks into wooden baskets, hockey nets, a refrigerator, basketball nets. Today it was that beautiful multicolored parachute which the Sunday school uses for there's certain games you can do with it, and it's used too in the summer for VBS. It was an easy target in some ways to hit. But think about what a parachute does. Any of you actually used a parachute? Wow. No. I have problems going up a two-step ladder. But for someone jumping out of a plane or being ejected out of a plane, a parachute is an essential tool. But think of the appropriateness of the parachute today. To catch those thermal socks. It's kind of like how we hope to rescue some cold feet. To catch people from frostbite or frozen toes in the colder winter weather. Our Bible text today is based on that verse that Allison mentioned. I have fought the good fight, I've finished the race, I have kept the faith. And appropriate words for the hundreds, and I would maybe guess now thousands who pass Walton Church. One thing that people who do live with housing insecurity on the streets or in the shelters do is they need to walk a great deal. They have no cars or Uber or taxis or heated vehicles like you or I might use. So they have to get around in freezing weather. They walk whatever the weather. Hence, good socks are essential. If you're always seeking shelter or food, you're always on the move. Not running like the people today past Walton for fitness or competition, but for them it's a marathon. It's a marathon to survive on the streets. Now, I wrote, do you know the difference between a marathon and a sprint? And Allison set that up for me, but the primary difference is distance, duration, energy expenditure, and the psychological demands. People living rough on the streets, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon of survival. And that is what our outreach committee tries to address in many ways. Not just through our socks, but through our food bank, through our work with various organizations like the shelter and the Christmas store. The faith journey is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Paul had a marathon of years. He faced incredible things. Shipwrecks, being put in jail. Now, he might not have received a medal like Allison, but he received countless blessings. So a sprint typically covers distances such as 100 meters, 200 meters, or 400 meters. And the sprint can last a few seconds to a couple of minutes at the most. A marathon, 42.195 kilometers, or today's a half marathon. So completing a marathon can take several hours. Some of us would be picked up by that truck. But it's not a sprint. In summary, while both sprinting and marathon running are forms of running, they require different physical attributes, training, and energy management strategies. Sprinters focus on speed and power for a short burst, while marathon runners concentrate on endurance and pacing so much longer. As they were going back west, there was someone else shouting, "The end is in sight," saying, "Keep on going." Now let me just transition here on this Hip Sunday. You see an orange shirt that others and myself are wearing today. Orange is not a traditional liturgical color. Each year, September 30th marks the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, which is why I wear this shirt and others have. This day honors the children who never returned and survivors of residential schools, as well as their families and communities. Public recognition of the tragic and painful history and ongoing impacts of residential schools is a vital component of that reconciliation process. I recall serving out west as a student, and I was taken to show a closed residential school, and the person who took me explained the experience, and I was just aghast. So the orange shirt is a grassroots day intended to raise awareness of individual, family, and community impacts of residential schools, and to promote the concept that every child matters. The orange shirt is a symbol of stripping away culture and freedom and self-esteem experienced over the generations. So what does this mean in terms of the race out front? I think orange shirts talk about it isn't a sprint, but it's a marathon. The federal government, the United Church, and other denominations have done some horrible things in the past. So today is about not forgetting, but about changing the present and the future. Not for a short 50-meter dash, but for a marathon. The Apostle Paul, in that verse, reflects on his life journey and the challenges he faced. Now recall, he was first a persecutor of the early church. Then he became persecuted when he became a follower of Jesus. I have fought the good fight. The phrase symbolizes struggles and battles that we face in life. And we do, each of us, have that good fight. Personally, professionally, spiritually, as part of a culture or a church or society. That verse symbolizes the importance of standing firm in our beliefs and values, even when confronted by adverse situations. It's about keep on, one foot after the other, after the other. I have finished the race signifies perseverance and commitment. It suggests the life is a journey filled with challenges. But the goal is to keep going, to stay on course, and reach the finish line, doing our best. Not beating the person who's been at the finish line for an hour, but doing our best. Part of Paul's biblical statement encourages us to focus on our objectives and keep pushing regardless. Like I said, it's a busy day. And if you came in early, which you're welcome to any Sunday, we not only test the sound system, we had preludes, we had rehearsals, but we also had usher training. And there's going to be some afterwards. Ushering is a really critical ministry in the congregation. But especially at Walton, so often we have visitors and newcomers. The ushers are usually the first person our visitors and newcomers come in contact with, they interact with entering the building. Ushers are literally the face, the hands, the voice, the smile, the first point of contact on each Sunday. Now in Psalms 84:10 we read, "Better is one day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere." The psalmist says, "I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than dwell in the tents of the wicked." So the psalmist is saying, I'd much rather be the person that holds the door, that opens the door and closes the door in the temple, than to dwell in a wonderful, huge tent, maybe what we might say is luxury accommodation. Even back in the Psalms, you can see the value of being a doorkeeper at the house of the Lord. It is both a blessing and a responsibility. It really is a unique role. And God gifts us that opportunity. We see our wonderful choirs and soloists and instrumentalists at the front of the sanctuary. But those on that back row, those ushering, are as important. Hence why we have training. Making people feel welcome. Ushers not only taking up the offering and doing that weekly count of the worshipers, and what to do in a case of emergency, but it's far more than that. In the blog, the pastor's coach, Dan Reeland, writes, "Ushers can make or break your worship service." Pastor Dan continues, the difference between a grumpy, distracted, and untrained usher compared to a cheerful, engaged, and serve you with a smile usher is huge. Dan writes, "I've always loved the usher team. It's one of my favorite ministries." The ushering is so important. It's often undervalued, undertrained, and less than organized. Your ushers are a tremendous force in setting the tone of worship and helping people prepare to hear and respond to the Word of God. Imagine you come through the door. Most of you have your favorite place to sit, right? Though we have no reserved seating in that way. In my mind, I can close my eyes and I can point. Or I can come in here alone by myself and I can say, that's where so-and-so usually sits, over in this area. Sometimes I come in and pray for an individual who's going through something, and I tend to go to where they sit. And that's fine. You don't need a great deal of ushering. But someone, it's the first day. They come in. Where am I supposed to sit? They're afraid. I don't want to sit in the wrong place. I don't want to sit and have someone tell me I have to move. So the usher is someone who expresses the ministry of hospitality. You know, you go to a dinner party. I always like when you go to the party and they've got those little cards on the plates telling you where to sit. Or you'll be in their living room or family room and they'll say, come on, Jim, will you sit here? Oh, yes. Then I don't have to feel awkward. Well, our ushers do that. There's a best-selling book, in fact, The Art of the Church Usher. It's a best-selling book. The usher, it says, the ministry of hospitality and caring in the church. Ushers are the ones who at the door greet and are the ambassadors of the church and a key part of the body of Christ. Ushering is a wonderful opportunity to do what? To minister to members and visitors by way of our attitude. A smile and a gracious greeting, a very welcome part of church, a heartfelt welcome. You set the tone. Now, ushering is more of a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not that you arrive at 10 o'clock, you seat a couple of people, you pick up the offering, and you're done. It's more about before the service starts, that period, as well as after the service is over. Now, some ushers here at Walton have done it for years. Thank you. Others are just new to it. Thank you. Our worship chair, Mark, would love to chat with you if you're interested in this ministry. So our consideration of Paul's words end with the phrase, I have kept the faith. Keeping the faith is about maintaining trust and belief in oneself, others, and the divine presence of God in our lives. Keeping the faith highlights the importance of hope and conviction, especially in the difficult times in a marathon. I ran one once. Hard to believe. It was for Kerr Street Ministries. And it was easy going downhill. But coming back up Kerr Street, I've driven it many times, you don't realize there's a slope. And even though I could see in the distance the finish line, and even though I had family members who had already made it and were coming back to cheer me, as that slope got a little higher, those are the challenging times to keep on going. My speed slowed down, but to keep on going, step after step. So Paul's words serve as a powerful reminder of resilience, dedication, to keep on keeping on that concept. So to summarize, Paul is saying, remain steadfast in your faith. Actively engage in your growth and service, and persevere through the challenges. In essence, fight the good fight. Means living with commitment, integrity, and perseverance, no matter how rough that incline is you're going up.